I got in touch with Nick Cowley, Senior Sales Director at Cloud Telco platform provider Odine Solutions. I started off by asking him about how Odine Solutions is getting on top of the COVID-19 pandemic before diving into the hot topic of SIMBox.
Well, clearly the world is in uncharted territory right now globally. And of course, we as Odine Solutions hope everyone can stay safe and healthy and the world can return back to normality as soon as possible. The Odine Cloud Telco solution always has capacity for significant events or challenges in the world. A number of tools to profile, look at situations, usage, and reallocate resources to meet the customer needs. So right now, the flexible and dynamic nature of the cloud services we offer has meant that our customers can keep up with demand, even if for short periods of time, without there being a major effect on their business. I think also key to this is the nature now with so many remote workers is that within our solution, within our environment, customers have been able to continue as normal. They've not experienced any significant change in user experience or the service itself. So for us, it's about being dynamic and flexible for customers and meeting that need as and when it's required. As I said, even if it's over a short-term period.
COVID-19 will surely provide an opportunity for fraudsters to plough more fraudulent traffic onto the network. How can the telecoms industry do its part to ensure its end-user customers best mitigate against these possible future threats during this pandemic?
This is always a challenge, and it's an ongoing battle with grey route traffic and SIMBox fraud. And talking within the marketplace, I think there has been an evolution of the software and the detection methods have actually enabled the detection to be faster and better. But you're always going to see growth in emerging markets. And as I said, it's a continual battle. A consideration during this time might be that with the growth in traffic, you may see potentially the fraud returning, which will affect quality and will affect the user experience, which obviously is something that every mobile operator and service operator is keen to avoid. You may also find that with the nature of SIMBox fraud, with the lockdowns in country, ability to obtain SIMs may be more difficult. The ability to top up those SIMs may be more difficult. So it's difficult to know if there's going to be any real change within that area. The people it will affect is obviously the end user and the performance that they get. But this is a continual battle. It's a continual investment. And I think as long as operators are continually testing and have a proactive method to fight the battle against SIM fraud, then the objective is to keep it as low as possible, wipe it out where possible. But of course, there will always be a challenge, and it's just being one step ahead.
Bypass seems to be a big issue across the wholesale carrier and mobile network operator industry. How can industry associations and solution providers like Odine work with the wholesale sector to ensure this issue is well controlled globally?
And that's the statement. It's a global battle, and it's got to be fought by all parties. No one person can stop the SIM fraud that goes on. You need the wholesalers, the vendors, the MNOs, and there's got to be an appetite within the business to combat the issue. You also need governments, regulators, and enforcement agencies who are all working together to squash down and to reduce the amount of SIM fraud, because it affects everyone. It affects revenues, profitability, it affects taxation, and of course, it will naturally always affect the end user. And unless everyone is actively wanting to make a change and get this goal achieved in terms of this, it's just going to take time. But those operators that have taken the steps with the likes of ourselves and service providers have been able to remove or greatly, dramatically reduce bypass fraud. But as I said earlier, it's an ongoing battle, which it needs a collective effort across the industry if we want to suppress and stop bypass fraud.
You have clients that use your Gatekeeper software, which combats SIMBox fraud activity and spoofing. Nick, could you give me one use case where your client has seen this activity along its network greatly reduce?
Of course. To give you a very good example, we've worked very closely with Telco for a number of years, a significant operator in the region, I think in the region of around 35 million subscribers, and they were facing major issues with SIM fraud. And the market was flooded. There was a huge amount of activity and opportunity in them. And that was affecting the mobile operator who was losing international traffic. It was reducing the mobile termination rate. And that again comes back to that profitability element and the loss of revenue that they were seeing. In place, Turkcell had a couple of fraud detection solutions, but they weren't making the impact in the market or enabling them to reduce the fraud significantly. Detection time was quite long, and they were unable to identify, disable, and remove these SIMs quickly. Due to the volume of traffic in the market, this was having a very large impact upon them. Now, working closely with them, because every scenario and every operator has a different approach to this, we work closely within their team, within the mobile division, and the implementation of Gatekeeper empowered Turkcell to detect almost 10 times more SIMs in the market. And by being able to do that, the time to block was reduced from an average of around 140 minutes down to an average of 16 minutes, which is a huge amount of reduction and time taken to detect. And also it means that there's less revenue being lost. Now, this huge reduction in time pretty much led to a wipeout and a removal of grey fraud within the Turkish market. But this wasn't just Turkcell, it needed the other MNOs and the regulators to work upon this and maintain the efforts to remove them. Now, what that led to in time was an increase in the mobile termination rate. That means an increase in revenue. So not only was the traffic coming back to the operators in the correct channels, in the correct routes, international traffic grows, the market rate goes up. Therefore, everyone is in a position to be able to increase revenues, profit, and also guarantee that customer experience in terms of the performance of the network. So for them, it was a significant change and has led to a real turnaround in controlling the grey route and SIM fraud traffic.
Thanks to Nick Cowley from Odine Solutions for his time. You can listen to the full-length episode on BrightTalk. The Global Telco Fraud Summit will once again be held later this autumn in London and will be in co-location with the Global Telco Blockchain Summit. You can register to attend the event on the Capacity Media events page at capacitymedia.com/events. The Fraud Summit will also release a podcast and webinar series on 5 key topics that will predominantly feature at the heart of the event: driving behavioural standards, advanced technologies, operations and infrastructure, fraudulent traffic pumping, voice fraud and mobile fraud. The podcast and webinar episodes will be made available on BrightTalk and the Capacity Media website, as well as Capacity Media's YouTube channel. So do keep abreast of all of our latest digital content over the coming weeks. Stay tuned and thank you for listening to this episode.